Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video we are going to be talking about relics, and more specifically how I choose the champions that I bind my relics with, because obviously all of these relics are largely designed with a certain few champions in mind, or at the very least a small group of champions in mind. For instance, Storm Relic is a very good relic that increases damage for select mutant champions. But in order to benefit from it, you need to have it on like the Bishop or Bishop or Kitty Pryde or a few more very select specific champions. Otherwise, it's just not going to do much. For instance, here when activating a special attack with 5+ prophecy effects, the opponent's inflicted with an energy vulnerability debuff. That's an awesome ability. It's quite helpful. It increases your special attack damage, but most of the mutants don't really have access to 5+ promise effects, and a whole bunch of them that do, you wouldn't necessarily play to begin with. So for instance, you could put this, I don't know, Relic on Thekiryu and APOC, but APOC can only have 4 prowess effects max, so you would never get that benefit, right? That is true. However, at the moment, still, since relics are relatively new, more often than not, it doesn't really matter. Most of these relics, not the ones that, you know, you get as 5 stars and you end up ranking up highly. There the benefits can be meaningful, and I'm going to explain that a bit later. But in vast majority of the situations, especially when it comes involving your 3-star relics and your 4-star relics, especially the ones that are unranked, it doesn't matter what they do, or it barely matters what they do, to be more specific. And the reason for that is because you are trying to combine effectively an unranked 3-star item with a 6-star rank 4 or rank 3. To put this in a very kind of visually easy to understand perspective is, imagine if you are playing some sort of RPG game and you are a level 99 character with 10,000 attack points, 100,000 health, and every stat maxed out. And the game announces that now you can get equipable items for those champions, and you get a dagger that gives you +1 strength. You know, whether you have 10,000 or 10,001 attack points, it changes nothing. Similarly, you know, when you get some sort of defensive bonuses, when you have, you know, you lower enemies' physical resistance by 3, it just doesn't matter whether you do physical or energy damage. You're not going to see any meaningful improvement there at all. Therefore, when it comes to all of the smaller relics, it is much more important to equip them on the champions that you actually use. You see, for instance, here a great example would be, I think, where is the relic that I have on Galen? Or the one on CGR basically is the same story there, but I wanted to use specifically that one as an example. So here I have a relic on Galen. You can see that when I summon a striker, last hit inflicts bleed vulnerability debuff, increasing the potency of future bleed effects by 5%. Then the inserted rune is, for each unique buff on the champion, hits landed against the bleeding opponent gain +3 point something critical damage. Those are tiny, insignificant stats, and Galen doesn't have access to bleed on his base kit. So Galen doesn't benefit from any of these abilities. However, putting this relic on Galen is one of the best decisions that I have made, because Galen benefits greatly from having access to that striker. Because with Galen, that means that it's very easy way, for instance, to land a heavy attack against a stun immune opponent. You can do your, 3 or 5 hit combo, chain it into a relic. He's basically passively stunned after the relic attack. You just drop a heavy attack once he's passively stunned, and you don't need to find a parry opening or a way to parry that opponent. And that is how 95% of the relics for 90+% of the people will largely be used, and what is the main benefit. Again, just because there is such a disproportionality to the level and ranks of relics that we currently have access to, compared to the champions that we are currently using, those abilities there are largely meaningless for all of the relics, but maybe the 5-star ones that you end up taking to ranks 3 and 4, and then they start actually making a decent impact in most cases. So here, it's much better to put this Venom relic on Galen, on a champion that doesn't benefit from any of the abilities that this relic has, just so Galen has a striker, because that gives you the ability, obviously, to do the extended combos. As I said, easily land a heavy attack, can save you from trouble at times, can, you know, let you finish fights in kind of like more interesting and like intelligent ways. And the other alternative would have been, I could have given this relic, let's say, to Venom. I do have a rank 3 Venom, but I don't really use him all that much. And this relic could sit on a Venom, where all of these abilities would work. All of these abilities would help Venom do slightly more damage. Would that turn Venom into a great champion? Absolutely not. I mean, Venom is a good champion, but the boost from that relic wouldn't be that noticeable. Now, if I had a maxed out 5-star Venom relic, I'd probably try and select more appropriate target. Or in my case, I actually have a ranked up Venom relic. It's a rank 3 Venom. And in this case, I gave it to Gore, because Gore can benefit from all of these abilities. But again, that is because I actually use Gore, and this is kind of like a decent match. As for the rest of the lower ranked relics, it really doesn't matter for those abilities. And that is kind of like the second part that I want to talk about, because obviously all of these champions do have some intended targets. That will largely be a separate video where I feel people want me to go over all of the individual relics and kind of recommend the best targets for them specifically. But for now, I can kind of explain who I binded to what, why. But as a general rule, you guys can see that all of my relics are largely binded to my rank 4 champions. Even if they're not the best and most appropriate targets, it is that they are binded to the champions that I use the most, again, primarily for that striker ability. Like, for instance, Human Torch, I have physical vulnerability relic on Human Torch. Human Torch has nothing to do with physical damage. All of his damage is energy damage. But having that striker is still super helpful. Right. So that is the main kind of binding principle. Other than that, obviously, like we can see with this 3-star Valkyrie relic that I haven't binded to anything, there is always going to be like a list of champions that it can be applied to, so you are limited there in the first place to begin with, and it is kind of up to you to find the better targets. Like in this situation, I'm actually not binding this 3-star Valkyrie relic at the moment to anyone, because I'm not really using any of these champions. Not much anyways. Korg, I never use offensively. Thor Ragnarok, I don't use. Mantis, Shang-Chi, Stealth Suit Spidey, Black Widow, Deadly Origins. I will bind my Valkyrie to whichever of these champions makes it into my deck on week 4, which is likely going to be Black Widow, Deadly Origins. And that is going to be the reason why she's going to get this Valkyrie relic for now. And again, even this, she does have a better relic to equip too, so I might need to kind of like swap them around. But the main point again here is not the abilities of my lower ranked relics. The main point is just that the champions that I actually use in Battlegrounds, that I actually use day to day, have a relic equipped to them, not specifically which, you know, each individual relic. All that being said, the champions that I currently have bound, I have this Scorpion bound with the Hulk relic, which is the only maxed out relic that I have. But if the Hulk buff is decent and I rank up my OG Hulk after he gets buffed, that relic is probably going to go there. And I have this Vision relic, which at the moment is bound to my Omega Sentinel, because again, Omega Sentinel is a champion that I use, and she does benefit from all of these abilities here because she does have the heal block and everything else. Then I have this Venom relic equipped to Gore, because Gore does have access to a lot of buffs. He does have access to bleed, and that is somewhat helpful in order to increase my damage, my critical rating, and bleed potency as well, even though that is not how Gore gets majority of his damage. Against Storm, again, you need to have prowess effects, so Storm is great for Storm, Toad, Sauron, I would say, and obviously Bishop and Kitty. Now we have Black Panther relic that benefits largely for champions that have access to guaranteed critical hits. So I have given that to my Mole Man. And Jag's relic on Jags. Against Thor relic is best on like Odin or Angela, but I don't use those champions too much, so I have given it to Hulkling. Still kind of synergized, it's fine. Hulkbuster relic is great with Guardian and Nebula and other champions that have access to shock, so I have given it to Nimrod. My lower ranked Storm relic is on Bishop, and we can see that pretty much as the lower we go, the less it matters what champions I have binded these relics to. And again, as the final tip is, all of your 3-star relics, just bind them to whichever champions you use the most. And 4-star relics for most part as well. 5-star relics, it's kind of potentially, especially as you rank them up, worth trying to find good targets for. The bottom ones, it really isn't. Again, I have bleed ability relic on CGR. CGR doesn't have bleed effects. I have like regeneration rate relic to Domino. Domino doesn't have regeneration. I have prowess Storm relic on Archangel. Archangel doesn't have prowess. So on and so forth. It's just, I'm trying to, make the main point here. But at the moment, until we get relics that are matching our champion strength, until we can, catch up, so to speak, until at the very least we have like, plenty of maxed out 5-star relics, a decent SIG or something like that. Those benefits are fairly marginal, and the biggest plus is just having that access to the striker. So that is what I'm playing with, and that is how I choose which champions and bind them, and those are basically just the champions that I use the most all around the game. Anyways, I hope this video was helpful, and if it was, then hit that like button, hit that sub button. I will try to make a video where I go over each individual relic and suggest the best targets for them. I will see how I can do that. I might need to do a whole bunch of unbinding and then talk about it, but leave that up to me. I'll catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the